Chapter 19. Shopping. Even though it was still early morning, there was a fair amount of people making their way around the market. Although it was obvious that this number was nothing compared to what it would be like later in the day, there was enough that Sauron groaned.
Reese, I never can just have it simple, can I?
Haldir didn't reply to him and began to walk into the lane. His nose was instantly bombarded with hundreds of different smells that he found quite pleasant, and so figured that Sauron would dislike. So long as he didn't start up on another coughing fit, Haldir couldn't care less. Looking around at everything, he decided that it would be better to try to get right to the point. Just by seeing everything around him, he knew that if he were to just browse around a bit while Sauron was looking for his stuff, that there would be a good chance that he'd be wandering about all day. There were so many things that were strange to him that he wanted to take a look at closer, but he restrained himself. He stopped for a moment for Sauron to catch up, who was taking longer in his attempt to make sure he did not brush up against anybody at all.
Try to make this quick, or else I'll get sucked in and you'll have no hope of getting me out until the evening, okay?
Won't need to warn me twice,
Sauron replied, frowning slightly as he looked around.
I can't believe that you could stay here long.
Well, I would, whether you believe it or not, so hurry it up.
Fine. Just help me find the ruddy places, and I'll get about this business.
I doubt that I can help you much. You're tall enough to look over everybody, whereas I am definitely not.
Haldir said, just a bit bitter. He hated admitting his relative shortness.
True, but you know more about how these things would be set up than I do.
Haldir snorted.
At my home, yes, but this is different. I guess we'll both just have to look. 2 eyes are better than 1 after all.
Sauron just looked at him funny, and Haldir took a moment to figure out why. He then cleared his throat in an attempt to keep from being unable to control the laughter that had welled up.
Or, 4 eyes are better than 2. Or 2 pairs are better than 1.
Shut up,
Sauron groused.
Will do,
Haldir replied. They made their way through the lane, scanning the sides for any sign of the elusive shop which would have some clothes. At first it seemed that this might take more time than had been assumed, but then Haldir spotted a shop. After going against the flow of the crowd for a moment, they came to the other side of the lane and the shop.
After you,
Haldir said with a smile, waving forward. Sauron just shook his head and entered. It was not very large, and what room it did have was absolutely packed with clothes. There was a woman sitting in the back of the room reading, who momentarily looked up and smiled at them before returning to her book. As Haldir had earlier surmised, pretty much all of the clothes were very light in color. He heard Sauron sigh in such a way as to suggest that he was not very surprised either. Half-heartedly, they looked through what was there, and when it was official that there was nothing there that was dark enough for Sauron's taste, they left. It was the beginning of what turned out to be a long search. They didn't really talk much, which suited both fine, as they made their way up the lane to the end of the market and began to make their way back down the other side in the next few hours. It had all been pretty fruitless thus far, and both were getting a little irritated with it. Even Haldir, who was still interested in all of the strange new things that were present, began to want to get done. A little before noon, Haldir called for a break as his stomach was starting to complain. He got some food from one of the stands and proceeded to eat it all by himself, since Sauron had once again insisted that he was not hungry.
You know, I'm sure that you're going to get hungry sometime in the near future. You might as well have something.
I wouldn't let myself starve. If I'm hungry, I'll eat.
Haldir considered him over the top of his food. By now he was seriously beginning to think that Sauron was not capable of figuring out if he was hungry or not. It would explain why he was so freakishly thin. Once he was done, they started off again, going to another shop which was not far from where they had stopped. When again there was nothing, Haldir finally thought that it was time to say something.
You know,
he began while scanning for any more shops.
You might not find anything that is what you're looking for.
Sauron did not reply right away.
I know.
So you might have to settle for something that isn't dark.
There was an even longer pause.
I know.
Well then, that's good. I'm starting to get annoyed with this anyways, so how about we give it 3 more shops, and if you don't find anything in those, in the last one we'll just pick something up.
Fine,
Sauron said morosely, which made Haldir smirk a little. All that over clothes, good heavens. Again, there was nothing in the next one, although it had been a bit better than some. And then they came to the second to last one. They went in and split up like they had for the last few hours. It made it go by quicker. By this time, Haldir had gotten a system to how he looked, and by doing this he found nothing. He'd gotten to the last shelf when he heard something that made him pause. It sounded like a squeal. He set down the pile of clothes that he had been leafing through and stood up straight, blinking a little bit. When he looked around the store, the only other person he saw was Sauron. This required a few more blinks.
Was that you?
He asked. Sauron did not answer. Instead, he held something up.
I win!
He exclaimed happily. Haldir looked at what he was holding and grinned. Lo and behold, it was the previously unseen, darkly dyed tunic. Not that he would go so far as to say that finding it granted the title of winning, but it didn't really matter.
It's the darkest thing I've seen all day. Granted, it isn't black, but it's close enough. Ha! I knew there had to be something out there.
Sauron looked amazingly happy, snatching up the few articles of clothing that were darker colors. Haldir found to be much nicer to have him be happy than sullen, but it was still a bit creepy. After all, it was just clothes. But then again, Haldir reflected that it seemed that most of the time things did not go his way, so when it did, he might as well enjoy it while it lasted. They found the shop owner and paid the money for the clothes. Haldir was a bit surprised with how little of the coinage they brought needed to be used for these. It made him feel quite rich, actually, but he tried to keep it from going to his head. Once that was done, they headed back to the house, both in quite better moods than they had been a couple minutes earlier. However, as they walked, Haldir couldn't help but remember that strange noise he had heard in the shop.
So...
he began slowly, not wanting his question to knock Sauron off his cloud.
You're happy now?
Yes, sadly.
Sauron admitted.
If anyone back in
He realized that what he was going to say was not anything that should be heard by the people around, and so after dragging out the sound for a couple seconds, continue.
my lands had seen me getting pleased over clothes, I'd probably lose nearly all the respect I had.
Well, you aren't there anymore, so it doesn't make any difference. And here, it would be better to be wanting a good appearance than the other way around.
Like I care about your respect anyways.
Haldir did not really consider what Sauron had said, as he was trying to figure out the proper way about presenting the question that he wanted to ask.
So, did you make that noise back in the shop?
Well, that wasn't quite as tactful as he had wanted to be. Then again, he never had been any good about beating around the bush. He had always been a bit too blunt for his own good. No reason to stop now.
What noise?
You know.
Sauron cocked an eyebrow.
Oh no, I don't.
Come on, you don't have to pretend that you don't know.
Seriously, I have no idea what you're talking about. What noise?
He asked. Haldir was starting to think that Sauron really didn't know what he was talking about. He looked genuinely confused.
That squeal.
A squeal?
Sauron asked, looking even more confused.
Yeah?
Are you suggesting that I squealed?
It was a bit strange, but he actually looked a little amused by the implication rather than angered about it.
Yes.
Honestly, do you think that I would squeal? I don't think that you all have rubbed off on me that much yet.
But there wasn't anybody else in there besides you and me, though.
Then it was probably you.
Haldir frowned.
No, I didn't have anything to do that about. You were the one who had won,
he said, pointing to the clothes that Sauron was now carrying under his arm. Sauron did not reply, and Haldir could just about hear the gears turning in his head. Apparently, this last argument that Haldir had made hit something home. He cursed, causing Haldir to flinch slightly.
I can't believe this. I've been here for a day, and I squealed. This can't be happening.
He looked about ready to rip out his hair.
I have to do something bad.
Haldir's ears perked up at this.
What?
Bad. I need to do something bad. Now.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I'm slipping. It's completely unacceptable.
No!
Haldir hissed, pulling him away from the side of the road where the prospect of doing anything wicked was very high.
You can't do anything bad. That's why you're here.
No, I'm here because I was a retard and did not think to put guards around the one place where my power could be destroyed. See, if I had taken that into consideration a bit more, I can assure you that I would not be here. Well, I might, if I had gotten powerful enough. That's beside the immediate fact, though.
Don't do anything. I swear you won't be happy if you do.
When am I ever happy? Won't be much of a change.
You seemed to be happy a couple minutes ago.
Well, I'm not now, and that is all that matters. Come on, I need to do something. Let go of my sleeve.
No.
Please?
He implored. Haldir was a little surprised by that, but he didn't say so.
No.
Sauron thought for a moment and seemed to give up.
Fine. You're absolutely no fun at all. You're a complete stiff.
Whatever.
There was no response to this, and the rest of the short walk to the house was completed in silence.